Competitive Pokemon is the absolute best way to experience Pokemon in my opinion. The work that goes into forming a team, training, and battling other people makes you feel like you're in the Pokemon universe. And when you get to experience that with others, I think it's an amazing feeling. If it isn't obvious, I really love competitive Pokemon, to the point where it's the first video I created on this channel. And it's also where I was shown FluffyBarrage by Nelly Cifarelli. For those who don't know, FluffyBarrage is a VTuber Invitational Pokemon tournament ran by Waffle Baffo, and has been going on since Sword and Shield. Just recently, Season 9 has begun, with 8 trainers ready to take the crown. But we're here to take a look at those teams and see how they work. Quick disclaimer, I do not plan to correct these teams, change anything, or criticize them. Every team is somebody's baby, and I believe don't punch someone's baby or mess with them. I just want to nerd out about Pokemon and VTubers while also giving insight to why these teams are built the way they are. With that out of the way, we have 8 players, so let's go in no order and analyze their teams. First up is HiyumiNAO with Smeargle, Metagross, Skeledirge, Hitmontop, Feraligatr, and Sinistcha. From the get-go, this team has 2 really strong choices in Smeargle and Hitmontop. Smeargle is a Pokemon that can learn almost any move in the game, and because of that, it's highly flexible. This point is proven further with the fact that it has Focus Sash to deny one-hit KOs with a moveset of Follow Me, Decorate, Spore, and Jungle Healing. Hitmontop is a reliable Intimidate user that can use Fake Out to stop a single target's turn. It also gets Stab Close Combat, Wide Guard to deny spread moves, and Ice Spinner. They're both really 2 strong support Pokemon, and because of that, they have to be enabling someone for it to work out. That's where Skeledirge and Feraligatr come into play. Skeledirge is a strong fire Pokemon with a signature move called Torch Song. When activated, it increases the special attack of the Pokemon, so it becomes a perfect Pokemon to set up when you have a Fake Out or Spore user with you, while Feraligatr is strong due to its Sheer Force ability, which increases the power of moves that have a secondary effect by 30%, but removes the additional effect in return. You pair it with Life Orb because Sheer Force removes the damage that you take from it, but it still increases your attack. That is a 2.6 multiplier to all your moves chosen. A Hitmontop's Fake Out lets Feraligatr have the chance to deal some serious damage, while also letting Skeledirge have a chance to set up. Or Smeargle can take the time to use Spore, and really have a Pokemon sleep for the entire game. But that's just really the solid 4 core of this team. What about Metagross and Sinistcha? Metagross is your bulky choice that will ignore everyone and try to take hits and deal damage over time. While Sinistcha is a really good Pokemon to switch in with because it automatically heals your Pokemon once they enter into the field. But it also has Trick Room, so if it needs to, it can win the Speed War. And it even has Shrink Sap to self-heal itself and lower a Pokemon's physical attack. When I look at this team, I see one that wants to try and keep its heavy hitters alive for as long as possible with redirection, healing, and stall. Win conditions are keeping Feraligatr and Skeledirge alive for as long as possible. Overall, I really love this team, especially because it has Feraligatr, my favorite Pokemon, so admittedly, I'm a bit biased for this one. Our second trainer is AiMancha, with Lurantis, Pavilion, Porygon 2, Galarian Slowbro, Salazzle, and Primarina. Believe it or not, this team is focused on 2 modes, Porygon's 2 Trick Room and Pavilion's Tailwind. Let's give an example of basically how this works. Let's say that Porygon faces the team before. Comparing the speed stats of this team versus the previous one, you'll see that the previous one has consistently much faster Pokemon. So if you set up Trick Room, you can force the slower Pokemon to move first, that being your own. But if it's Pavilion's Tailwind as your choice, then you can outspeed some of your opponent's Pokemon. Depending on who you face, it can really give room for flexibility, especially when we have Lurantis and Primarina. Lurantis is a strong Pokemon because of its contrary ability, which makes stat changes have an opposite effect. So, with Superpower that automatically lowers your stats, it then reverses, buffing your Pokemon's stats, which can quickly lead to overwhelming them. While Primarina holds the Life Orb and can already deal a ton of damage on its own, that Life Orb, remember, is a 1.3 multiplier, meaning that Primarina can get a lot more picks than you can expect. Galarian Slowbro is here for a bit of that randomness because of its ability, allowing it to have a 30% chance to move first. But I'd be lying to say if it wasn't also to set up Belly Drum, which increases its attack in favor of its health. It's a really bulky Pokemon, so you have a good chance of surviving after using it. While Salazzle is here to act as the support Pokemon, Fake Out to enable damage or setup, Encore to punish Protect or any other move, Acid Spray to lower special defense, and Overheat to quickly damage an opponent. But I should mention that this Salazzle has the eject pack, which forces your Pokemon to switch out once its stat is lowered. A really good combination with Overheat because it automatically lowers your Pokemon stats. Overall, I think this team is really well balanced and works in a lot of situations, as long as you can stop the team from setting up, and that is hard since the team's win condition is just to survive. They have a lot of bulk to do it too. Our third trainer is Gravity, with Crocodile, Haunter, Murkrow, Charizard, Toxtricity, and Garganacl. This is the first team we get to talk about that has a very direct core. You see, in some Pokemon teams, you're forced to always have Pokemon paired together, or the strategy just doesn't work. Gravity's roster is specifically centered around the sun. That's because for Charizard to get maximum value out of its ability Solar Power, it needs the sun to activate it. Murkrow is the answer to that. Because of its ability Prankster, it's able to set up Sunny Day turn 1. So you can say that they're always forced to be together. They don't always have to be side by side, but they're always together. However, if we remove these two from the team, then the rest don't really have a strong game plan out of pure offense. So they end up becoming supporting Pokemon for both Murkrow and Charizard. But how? Garganacl, for example, is a stall player's dream. Its ability halves all ghost moves and stops it from having a status effect. Salt Cure deals 1/8 of maximum HP over time, and it's also just an extremely broken Pokemon. I mean, look at those special defenses. Insane! So moves like Recover on a Pokemon like this is, I think, really the crazy part. Pair that with Terra Poison, where your weakness are only ground and psychic, and you have someone who can come in after your opponent has no resources to handle it. Now, Toxtricity and Crocodile are really here for good damage, while Haunter is an annoyance of a support Pokemon. The team is strong for the fact that Charizard is well guarded by the rest of its team, and so Garganacl can really come in afterwards and sweep up anybody who wasn't picked off beforehand. Our fourth trainer is KranPlz, with Raichu, Maushold, Dragonite, Ninetales, Jumpluff, and Hisui and Typhlosion. Out of all the teams, I would consider this the best team objectively built. Everyone but Ninetales is already a statistically really strong Pokemon, and we'll get into that. But what really makes this team strong is how flexible all of it is. For example, you can start off with Ninetales and Jumpluff, Dragonite and Raichu, Jumpluff and Typhlosion, and so on. Your opponent basically has to guess for every matchup. But let's break down these Pokemon and why they're so good one by one. Starting with Raichu. This Pokemon is a really solid pick. It mirrors closely to the standard Raichu set of Endeavor, Volt Switch, Fake Out, Nuzzle, while holding the Focus Sash. It's an amazing pressure due to being a super quick Endeavor user, meaning that if you knock it in red HP and it uses that, you're also in red HP, which is really bad for any tanky Pokemon dealing with. But if you decide to leave that Raichu alone, it can use Nuzzle to paralyze your entire team, or switch in, use Fake Out, and switch out. You'll basically have to think twice when going up against this Pokemon. Dragonite is currently one of Regulation H's best Pokemon. High physical attacks make Scale Shot do a lot more damage. And to get maximum value out of it, we see it paired with the Loaded Dice item, which forces moves that hit 2 to 5 times, instead hit 4 to 5 times. For a quick math, that means instead of doing 60 to 50 base power, you are guaranteed 120 to 150 base damage. Let's not forget the fact that it has a priority extreme speed, which it can also Terra into normal for stab damage, making it stronger, causing an 80 base power move to turn into a 96 base power move. Jumpluff is here to be an incredibly strong support. Because of the sun, it gets a speed boost, making its Encore and Sleep Powder a massive threat. But when it's not using those, it has Tailwind to speed up its own team and Pollen Puff to heal. Maushold, on the other hand, is here to be a really threatening Pokemon despite not being that big, as its move, Population Bomb, can hit 10 times with a base power of 20. At maximum, that basically means you're doing 200 base power damage. With Technician as its ability, the 20 base power move gets an increase by 1.5, making its maximum damage 300 base power. It's absolutely insane, but it's also surprisingly bulky, so using Follow Me for a move is absolutely worth it. Hisuian is a really strong Fire Ghost Pokemon, making it immune to normal and fighting moves like Fake Out and Close Combat, which can be massive threats. This is also where a very popular VGC strategy can come into play, where you give it the Choice Scarf to increase its speed and use moves like Eruption and Overheat to get an early pick. It's a standard build for this Pokemon, but an absolute deadly one, especially when Ninetales is on the team. Its ability Drought sets up the sun the moment it's in play, so Typhlosion becomes a fast nuke and Jumpluff becomes a fast disruptor. It may not have the prettiest stats or movesets, but for the support that it brings in with the weather, it's still really dangerous. Overall, you'll likely see Dragonite and Maushold in every variation of this team because they're just really that good. But this is still a team that can use any Pokemon in any situation, and you'll have to go into it with a good game plan. Our 5th trainer is Beck with Hatterene, Indeedee Female, Luxray, Kingambit, Gallade, and Hisuian Zoroark. This team falls under the category of a hard Trick Room team, as 3 of the 6 Pokemon have their entire kit built around it. But why Luxray and Zoroark in this specific build for Gallade? I mean, it's not really here to set up Trick Room or support any Pokemon inside of it. Well, let's understand that despite the team being in hard Trick Room, it also wants to work outside of it. Luxray is a mid-speed Pokemon. Luxray is a mid-speed Pokemon, meaning that you're not always going to be outspeeding your opponent. So, it could be a good pick to set up before or in Trick Room. But also the fact that Luxray is a Pokemon that gets Guts. The fact that it holds a Flame Orb gives it the automatic status effect, so its move Facade becomes even stronger. Combine that with the fact that it has Terra Normal and it can do some serious damage. You can also summarize that idea with the other Pokemon, like Zoroark, who has the choice specs to increase all its special moves, while Gallade has the Sharpness ability, which increases its blade moves. The team works really well when forcing pressure, especially when you're sitting here saying, how are you dealing with the Trick Room setter? Are they going to set it up, or are they going for pure offense? Our 6th trainer is KranPlz, with Porygon 2, Ursaluna, Grimmsnarl, Goldango, Annihilape, and Volcarona. This is another balanced build. Porygon 2 and Volcarona are here for speed control, but also work as strong Pokemon in most situations. You can even pair them together and not prioritize any type of speed control. What I really want to talk about is the fact that there's an Ursaluna, as I'm sure when you look at it, you think that it needs Trick Room to work every single time. And while you're right on paper, and in most standard teams, it's still possible to run it in a Tailwind setting. That's because Ursaluna's base speed is 70, and in Tailwind, that becomes 140 base speed, which is enough to make it equal to a lot of mid to maybe low-high speed Pokemon. And when Ursaluna is a Pokemon that can do an insane amount of damage when left alone, it can be threatening. Annihilape follows that classic early regulation build with the goal of surviving to make Rage Fist deal as much damage as possible. Goldango also matches that idea of early regulation, with its moves being set to be early on damage. That's most noticeable because it has choice specs to increase its special attack, Terra Steel to make it rain even more dangerous than it already is to a Pokemon that doesn't resist it. But we can't forget the true support of this team, Grimmsnarl. Prankster Taunt is incredibly strong against any support Pokemon that isn't a Dark type, and Turn 1 Reflect and Light Screen can change the flow of an entire fight, allowing Pokemon like Porygon 2 and Annihilape to become nearly unkillable. The team is flexible. Its win condition does not completely rely on setting up speed control, but rather forcing your opponent to play a guessing game, and if they make one mistake, then it's very possible the win's all yours. Our 7th trainer is FinnyFey, with Flareon, Jolteon, Leafeon, Umbreon, Sylveon, and Espeon. This team is a full evolution core, and despite the gimmick of it, unprepared opponents might struggle, so I'll take extra care to point out some small details. The threats on this team are Umbreon, Flareon, and Sylveon. Flareon has a Toxic Orb for Guts, so it won't be able to survive long, but at a base attack stat of 130, it's an extremely strong Guts user. Sylveon has the Throat Spray and Hyper Voice to get a stat increase. Sylveon has the Throat Spray, and it's activated by using Hyper Voice to get that attack stat increase. Sylveon has the Throat Spray, and with a move like Hyper Voice, it'll activate it, increasing its own stats. Combine that with the ability Pixelate, all its normal moves become Fairy, so Terra Blast, Quick Attack, and Hyper Voice become Stab, and are extremely threatening to a Pokemon that don't resist it. Now, Umbreon is kind of like the bulk of the team. With the natural high defense stats that it has, you give it Terra Poison to force your opponents into using Ground or Psychic moves. Combining that with Moonlight for healing, Taunt to deny support, Yawn to force a switch or sleep, and Foul Play for damage, and you kind of understand why these 3 Pokemon are as strong as they are. But if those are the 3 threats, then what do the rest do? Simple. Jolteon is fast with the Life Orb to increase its own damage. With moves like Electro Web to lower your opponent's speed, and Thunderbolt for big hits, it can be really strong, but it's very Glass Cannon-like. While Espeon is only here to set up the Sunny Day for Leafeon. It's the most noticeable because Leafeon has the ability Chlorophyll. It's most evident because Leafeon has the ability Chlorophyll to increase its speed in the sun. Combine that with Sword Sands to increase increase its own attack, and it can become a very dangerous sweeper if left alone. This team works by catching you off guard and not really knowing the matchup. While it's not something meta or extremely common, I think teams like this are really fun, and honestly more people should experiment and have fun like this. Our final trainer is someone in disguise, known as the Ogre, with Tyranitar, Flygon, Hisuian Arcanine, Volcavolt, Houndstone, and Swampwort. The team is built around the Sandstream ability, which summons the Sandstorm weather. While it's not as strong as, say, Sun, Rain, or even the Snow weather, mainly because it doesn't increase any Pokemon's type of damage output or give it a severe buff. It does boost special defense for rock types, but those are physically bulky Pokemon, not specially defensive. And the weather really only does chip damage to anyone who isn't a rock, ground, or steel Pokemon. So the team here tries to make the most of it. They use Tyranitar as the key sand setter. It's bulky and its moves are meant to do damage over time, but its job is to really enable everyone else with the weather. Starting with Houndstone. It has the ability Sand Rush, which increases its speed and makes it immune to the sandstorm. Because of this ability, it can play like a mini Excadrill, with Stab, Last Respect, Will-O-Wisp for support, and the Life Orb to increase its overall damage. Hisuian Arcanine works here as it's a Rock-type Pokemon, so it's immune to the Sandstorm, but also because it's really strong with this standard set of Choice Band, Terra Normal, Stab, but it's also extremely strong because of the standard set of Choice Band, Terra Normal for Stab Extreme Speed, and Stab, Fire Blitz, and Rock Slide. Plus, it's also an Intimidate user, so anybody who relies on their physical attack is getting an automatic decrease the moment it switches in. A really good Pokemon choice. Flygon's here to set up Tailwind, but for the rest of the Pokemon, they're really there for simple jobs, like Flygon setting up Tailwind, Swampwort being your water coverage, and Wide Guard to stop dual attacks, and Volcavolt being there for strong bug and electric typing. But also because it has Levitate, so if someone tries to use a ground move on, say, your Arcanine, you'll be able to swap and get a free turn off them. The team works really well for damage over time, especially if you manage to thrive in the Weather War. That's all the 8 teams. And if you're curious how FluffyBarrage went, I'd recommend you checking out the VODs linked in the description. The tournament's already over for Season 9, and I won't spoil who managed to win it out in the end. That's for you to decide in the comments below. But if you're curious on how a match went, and maybe want someone to nerd out about it, feel free to comment below, and I'll break down some of Season 9's matches. But either way, I'm Gother, and I hope to see you next time.